So, good morning and welcome to eMentoring, Building Connections and Community Online. And mentoring at a distance has never been easier. And I found it really interesting in the questions that I asked registrants on this webinar to find that it was about a 50-50 split in terms of people who were and were not using some form of e-mentoring or some form of technology in their mentoring programs. But I mentioned in my newsletter that came out earlier this week that it was back in 2008, 2009 that I was involved in my very first e-mentoring program. And back then, I mean, now it's hard to remember a time before mobile phones and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all these social media applications that we kind of take for granted now. But I can tell you, back in 2008, this was breaking new ground, at least for me, as an older person in this field. And I actually had my own e-mentoring guru on board with me to help make that e-mentoring program work. It went right across New South Wales, which is quite a large state of Australia. Some people in the world have difficulty getting their heads around how large Australia is, but I think I wouldn't be too inaccurate to say that New South Wales, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it's close to about the size of Texas. So if I'm wrong, please tell me, but that's what I have in my mind. So it's a very large state. You could fit all of the UK in New South Wales and it would get lost. You could fit South Africa about 20 times in New South Wales. So it's a pretty big state. And that first e-mentoring program linked up 90 participants across the state and allowed them to build community online, to meet people virtually that they'd never met before, to connect with them and to share their experiences. It was especially designed for women in non-traditional areas, in remote, rural and regional areas of New South Wales. And I have to say, I believe it was a great success. In fact, I think it buoyed me up a little bit, made me too optimistic on some of my expectations, because I have found since that e-mentoring programs do strike quite a few barriers, and I hope we can talk about those today. And again, that was a question that I asked people when they registered for the webinar. I'll give you some feedback about that a little bit later on. But what I want to tell you that these days, although I believe mentoring at a distance has never been easier, there still are challenges. Yet almost all mentoring now involves some use of technology to connect participants, whether it's simple email, text, a dedicated website. Online communication is a vital tool, and younger participants especially expect online interaction. If you're not maximising online resources, you may be limiting the effectiveness of your mentoring. And the message I want to get across here, and I hope it came out in the information I gave before the webinar, I'm not going to be talking very much about those big platforms. I'll let them speak for themselves. Those big specialised platforms, they can provide an excellent resource and centre for your program. But what I want to tell you is that e-mentoring does not have to involve big, expensive platforms that make you dependent on IT experts. I'm going to focus a lot. I'm not putting those down. Please don't misunderstand me. They're fantastic resources, but we don't all have the budget and the expertise to produce those for ourselves or to use those for ourselves. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of the other smaller things that are low cost, even no cost, apart from the input of your own time and energy, which is not insignificant. I'm going to be talking about those sorts of things quite a lot. So let me introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm Anne Rolfe. I have a background in adult learning, career counselling and professional development. I've been in my own business for 30 years. My latest book is Mentoring Mindset, Skills and Tools, and I've spoken on this topic in Australia, Canada, China, Singapore, the Philippines and the USA. And as I mentioned earlier, these webinars are attended by people in all parts of the world. I do speak mainly from a corporate perspective, but I have worked with not-for-profit organisations, educational institutions, government agencies, and community groups. So you'll find my content is applicable in your situation as well. You might have to do a little bit of modification in your brain. I do come from a corporate viewpoint a lot of the time, but what I say is applicable in those other situations as well. So a bit of an overview. When in this webinar, as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about those low cost and no cost ways to engage mentoring program participants. Now, actually, as I look at that, I wish I had written that differently, because there's no such thing as no cost, because although it mightn't cost you a fee financially for some of these platforms, the cost is, of course, in time and energy. And I do find that people have expectations that mentoring doesn't cost you anything, that you just put people together and it all works without any input. And as I was reading through the notes, that some of the case studies, the people who are going to share their experience from their mentoring programs, I was reading their tips and so forth, and I was reminded that, and Laura, I think it was in your notes, you said, look, it's wonderful to have these platforms, but they don't operate on their own. They do need that input, that it just doesn't happen. So I think I should correct what I've written there. It's not no cost. The input of people to make a mentoring program work is not negated by technology. In some ways, it's even more effort that needs to be put in, because you build an expectation. But so let me modify that to low-cost ways to engage mentoring program participants. I'm going to bring you what other successful mentoring programs do online. And these are not only programs that I've had personal experience with, but I want you to hear the voices and the input. I've got 4 example programs that have large or small technology components as part of their program. I want to share those with you. I'm very excited about being able to do that for you. And want to talk to you about ways to educate participants at a training, at a distance. We know from research, and we meaning you on the line as well as myself, it's patently obvious that without training, without education, mentoring is handicapped. It can't be all it can actually be. And even though mentors are highly educated people in some cases and highly experienced people in some cases, they still need educating in the role of the mentor, in your particular program, what the expectations are, what the do's and the don'ts are, even what the etiquette is for being a mentor. And I also believe that those people who are mentored need education and training as well about, again, expectations, etiquette, protocols, and how to get the most out of the mentoring relationship. So I am biased. I suspect people on the line, we're not a random sample. We are a sample of specialists in this field. 80% of people on the line today are running mentoring programs right now. And I'm interested. Please type in your observations, comments, reflections. Call it if I say something you disagree with. I'd love to hear a diversity of opinions on the line. But my belief is we need to be educating participants, mentors, and the people that are mentored. So how do you do that? At a distance. We don't often have the luxury of getting people face-to-face for training, or if we do, it's on relatively short occasions. So please tell me what your experience of that is, and I'd love to talk about that some more as we go through. So when we say e-mentoring, we may think about mentors and mentorees who cannot get together face-to-face and therefore have virtual meetings. And what I want to say is there's a whole lot more we can do to engage participants and support them and enhance their mentoring experience. So we'll be talking about the various ways mentoring partners can meet virtually, and we'll also look at how to use automated email to make those connections and keep people connected and build relationships online. We'll also be talking about digital resources, so how you can get information to people easily and inexpensively by making your resources digital. What I mean by digital is just having them online in some way. So you might have ebooks instead of a printed book. You might use videos, podcasts, those sorts of things. I classify all those as digital resources. I'll spell out what I mean in more detail as we go through. This is the overview. And also, you may be able to build an interactive community online. So in the worksheet, I've actually got an expanded version of this slide for you with a little bit more detail. And what I've also put in that worksheet for you, and if you haven't got it now, it's fine. You can access it online. If you're watching the recording, it's there just underneath the recording. You can download it. But what I've put in there is actually a matrix of various types of e-mentoring under these categories: virtual meetings, automated email, digital resources, and interactive community. I've in this matrix, I've put down what you can use them for, what the benefits are, the sorts of tools, and these are the tools that I've used and I'm familiar with them. There's certainly any number of tools out there you can use, and I've listed some tips if you're going to use these. Now, what I'm hoping to do as a result of this webinar and the input I get from you and specialist people on the line is even more tips and even more ideas. And what I will do is update this matrix after the webinar and update the worksheet and post the updated worksheet online. So you'll have a good resource there to download and use to come back to. So let's move on. I'm just checking to see if there are any questions or comments coming in. Don't wait for an invitation. Type in at any time. I'll just pause from time to time and read those out. So let's look at some of the benefits of, firstly, virtual meetings. And of course, this allows people to mentor at a distance from their workplace or from their home. And I think we're going to see a lot more of virtual meetings online. I think, back in 2008, we weren't doing this in the eMentoring program. It's funny, isn't it? We called it an eMentoring program, and yet we didn't have virtual meetings except in the online community where people could do online chat. But the visual you've got up there of a video conferencing from a computer, we didn't do that because the technology then wasn't widely available. It wasn't all that reliable. Our bandwidths, we actually here in Australia, I hate to confess, our internet is not nearly as fast and reliable as it is in some other countries, although we're working on it. So video conferencing wasn't an option then. We didn't even have webinars like this in that first program. We had teleconferences, which for me as a visual person, I found much more challenging to engage people via sound without any visual to back me up. But now we can have virtual meetings. And again, this is something I do. And I got in the feedback from some of those pre-webinar questions. I did get a lot of feedback about the barriers, and there still is a bit of a stigma. People who have not experienced e-mentoring, online virtual mentoring, video conferencing from your computer, imagine that it's not the same as face-to-face. Now, okay, it may not be the same as sitting in a coffee shop or sitting across the desk or sitting next to someone face-to-face. However, the more you get used to this, the more you see that there's such a benefit. It's so convenient. It's so 21st century, and that's where we're living, not back in the 20th century, that this is something, once people have experienced it, they get far more used to it and they enjoy it more. And as the technology gets more and more reliable in this area, it's just the thing we're going to be doing more and more, not just in mentoring, in every part of our work life and our personal life. And I know from my own experience, when did I get onto Facebook? When did I get onto FaceTime? When did I upgrade my iPad so it had a microphone and camera built in. If you can not remember that they originally didn't have those things, when my own daughter travelled overseas and suddenly in my hands I was able to see her beautiful face. And not only that, she was able to show me where she was, to pan around, the room she was staying in, to pan around the scenery. And so it was on a personal level with my kids that that video conferencing, in a sense, first came to life from me. And you will see, and I'm a grandmother, and there are plenty of grandparents out there, I'm telling you, who are tech savvy and getting into this because they want to interact with families and community. So it's not just a business thing. So it is the way of the future, and it's like, suck it up, princess, we're part of the day. And although you mightn't use those words to your participants, I urge more tact than that. That's what I have in my mind when people say, or it's all too hard, it's not the same. Okay, seeing some comments coming in. Lisa is saying, people love face-to-face contact, but it's not always possible. I like virtual meetings, but find the broadband is variable. Yes, it is. And I've only just been able to connect to the NBN, and so far so good. Started to have some problems with the old, whatever it was called before. Okay, Gary, I find with virtual meetings things can happen more efficiently than person-to-person relations. Don't get in the way as much. Okay, yep. And Lisa's saying it also depends on the IT competency of some of the mentees. They seem to get very confused at times with the technology. Yeah, and I think we have to have patience. I think those of us who have got on board with technology, and those of us who, and it might have been forced upon us, it might have been a choice, but those of us who've been on board forget. When you are a newbie to this stuff, it is hard and things can go wrong, and it's easy to give up and retreat from it. And I think we have to have patience, and I think we have to have very clear instructions, and I think we have to have that sort of hand holding, if you like, to step people through in that very uncomfortable phase of getting comfortable or getting used to the new technology. And look, there's so many of them, aren't they? I hate it. And who hasn't had an upgrade on your smartphone, and you've gone, and I've just had an upgrade on my phone. I hate it. And I'm trying to find my way around how to do things. And one of the programs I do use with my online mentoring network group, as a participant, not a leader, has just upgraded its format, and I struggle with it. So we need to remember and have patience with the newbies as we go through. So virtual meetings, definitely a current thing that we are getting used to. Now, automated email. One of the things I love, and I use this a lot, when you receive my newsletter, that is an automated email. So and when you join one of my e-courses, that is an automated email. So if you haven't experienced that, I do encourage you to go to my website, pull the drop-down menu under resources, and you will find free e-course. And click on that, sign up. It's, I think it's called, oh gosh, I've forgotten. I think it's called 10 Keys to Mentoring or something like that. Anyway, you'll see it there. Sign up just for the experience of getting automated email. It's a 10-day, one email a day course, and it's very short. It gives you a little tip and a connection, a link to a video to watch or some other resources that you can use in designing your mentoring program. So those of you who are planning mentoring programs, hey, go jump on that because the content will be useful to you as well. But it is an example of an automated email. And what I love about that is you do the work once. That's why I've forgotten the name of it, because I did it so long ago. Not that long ago, but I did it a while back. I did all the work. I wrote all the emails. I developed all the resources. I put them on the website. I set that course up, and then I've forgotten about it, because when you sign up for that email, it does the rest automatically for me. So when you get those emails every day, I'm not sitting here sending them to you. It's actually done by MailChimp on my behalf. So try that out if you're not using automated emails. So I just love it because it's a service I can provide and do the work once. You can reuse it again and again and again as long as you want. And automated emails can be used in lots of different ways, and it can reinforce other things that you're actually doing. So then we look at digital resources. I wonder how many of you do exactly this, as shown on the screen there now. I know, we still buy recipe books, by the way, but many of us go online to get the recipe, to get the hints on how to cook our Thanksgiving turkey and or whatever else it is we want to, whether it's a cocktail perhaps or whether it's a meal. We go online for that information. Those digital resources are there, and they're usually there for free because, again, you do the work once and they are there for as long as you like, and you can afford to make them freely available to people, and you can build up a whole library of these things. I know at RMIT, which is one of the examples we'll be talking about shortly, they have a whole bunch of resources online that people can come and access whenever they want. So, and the beauty of that is because they're online, they're so convenient, and people can access them 24/7 as often as they want. Then we've got interactive communities. They can be highly engaging for those who participate, and they can provide personal support, and they can be responsive to individual needs. Now, they are a lot more work. They're not a one-off thing that you can just set and forget. You do have to participate regularly to make those work, and you have to work hard, in my experience, to get people to actually interact. Again, I've had one which is available for free. You're welcome to join if you wish. It's called the Mentoring Network. We now are up to somewhere around 900 members on that free online community, but I have to confess there is very little interaction. I set it up a long time ago in the hope that we'd all get along, get online, we'd chit chat, we'd share ideas. I could connect you wherever you are with someone on the other side of the planet who's doing the same things as you, and the two of you could establish a relationship and a conversation. From that point of view, that community is, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a failure, but it doesn't work the way I imagined it would work, because people have so many online demands that joining another community and talking to people online is not something they're readily going to do. And I'll tell you another way to go about that, and you may have guessed it already, where people are online pretty much all the time, where you can reach them and interact with them. So those are the four. That's just a quick overview, by the way, of the four ways that I think about eMentoring. And I'm going to run another poll, and I'm also going to pause to see comments that are coming in. Okay, so this one is, what technology are you currently using? And again, you can choose more than one. So the questions I asked before the webinar, I asked two questions. One was, are you using online digital technology in your mentoring, and if so, how? And of all the registrants for this webinar, it was about 50-50. So about 50% were using some form of technology, and 50% were either not using technology or either perhaps using it just minimally. They said no or not really in response to that question. Okay. The other question I asked was about the barriers and the obstacles to using online or digital technology for mentoring. So I'm seeing those votes coming in a little more slowly. I'll give you some more time on that. About 50% of people have responded. You can choose more than one. It takes a little while. And I should say, one of the limitations of these quick polls is the number of characters you can use in your responses. So I want to give a shout out to, I've talked about specialist mentoring platforms. Here in Australia, there's an Australian platform called Mentor Loop. I haven't personally experienced this one, but from what I've seen and heard, it's a great platform. Oh, I've misspelled or been spell corrected. It's not Chorus. It's meant to be Cronus. Cronus is the platform that I was thinking of. This is probably the most widely, certainly was the one mentioned most in the responses to my questions before before the webinar. So Mentor Loop, Cronus. There's also things like Mentor City in Canada. Sean runs that. He's not on the line today, otherwise I'd invite him to say hello. And that is a very good program. And I think from memory, you might have to check this, but for some community groups, you can even operate that one for free, I believe. So go find Mentor City in Canada online and check out that as a platform that you might want to use. Okay, what other ones are there? Oh, Insala also have a platform that you can use in that way. So just checking how many, okay, 69% of people have voted on that. So virtual meetings, and again, there's a lot more platforms than I've mentioned there, just the ones I could fit in. Skype is the first one. Google Plus Hangouts is one that I've used. Zoom is one that I've used as well. Of course, Facebook now offers you live video conferencing, so that's another one. FaceTime, I think, is just an Apple available one, but I'm sure there'd be something on Android phones or Google type phones. So there would be other, and these are free video conferencing platforms that you can use. Then the automated emails. So the e-course, which I described to you, you can also send out regular tips to mentors and mentorees. You might do a newsletter, or you might have other uses. If you have other uses for automated email, please share those. Digital resources, so videos, slidecast, podcasts, and written things like ebooks, or the interactive community. You might have a dedicated website. You might use social media, certainly. Quite a few people mentioned that in the pre-webinar questions, and of course webinars like this one. Okay, I'm going to close that poll now, share the results with you. Let's have a look. So this is from the attendees on the line today. So just under 30%, so 27% are using a specialist mentoring platform. If you want to, you might type in what you are using. Forgive my, I think it was autocorrect there that put in Chorus instead of Cronus, which is one of the most popular online platforms. There are, of course, other ones. So 27% of people are using that online. If you have any observations to share about that, happy to for you to type in, and I'll share what you've written. And you can do that anonymously to ANON before you comment. If you want to do that, I'll respect your privacy. So the vast majority of people are, in fact, using virtual meetings via Skype or one of those other platforms. Please type in if you want to expand on that. Only a small number, this surprises me, using automated email. 27% are using digital resources, and 55%, okay, this is interesting. Love to know more about what you're doing there with your online. So I'm seeing some comments coming in. I'll just leave those results up for you to digest or note down if you want to. Okay, so Lisa is saying, with the interactive community, in my experience, so this is Lisa's experience, our nurses, so it's a program for nurses, our nurses seem to be very voyeuristic. They love to read it but are reluctant to comment or contribute. Would love to hear more about how to get better engagement. Yeah, and I would echo that experience as well. I think that is very much the case. People like having the interactive community available. They'll read the blogs, they'll read what you put up there. They might, if you've got the like option, they might do that, but they tend to be less inclined to contribute. So Aaron from RMIT, uses Cronus. It's very good. The back end can be a bit fiddly, but it has the potential to do a lot of things. Yeah. As with any of these platforms, it's learning them and maintaining the expertise, and then optimizing, the value that you can actually get them. Okay, so Annie Friedman. Annie is telling us CSO is our mentoring platform, recently bought by grad leaders. Use Cronus webinars for sure. Great resource. Interactive community is LinkedIn group. Hoping to create a newsletter soon. Okay, fine. And, my newsletter goes out fortnightly. It's not directed so much at participants, but occasionally there's an article there that is very useful for participants. If you want any of my articles from my newsletter to, populate your own newsletter, happy for you to do that. I'll provide it for you in a Word document if you want, so you can copy and paste easily. The only thing I ask of you is you credit it, use the whole thing, credit my authorship, and provide a link to my website. So if you're struggling for content, which is often a problem in newsletters, I've got plenty of content. Happy to make that available with reasonable acknowledgement. Okay. So Aaron again saying, at RMT, we communicate with our mentoring community using newsletters via MailChimp. Yeah, I use MailChimp as well, and through Gmail mailbox for regular communication. So there's lots of things you can do. Again, Aaron, many of our mentors are based throughout Australia and overseas. There's a lot of online mentoring via Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, etc. Okay, Laura, I'm going to open up the line and get Laura on board in just a couple of minutes' time. So Laura's saying, our participants always ask for a forum in regards to an interactive community. So we've tried to market our already existing social media, mainly LinkedIn group. We've seen that the level of engagement really varies based on what the topic might be. Yeah. And Aaron is saying, we've had a successful series of 4 webinars for our mentors in the last year. Yeah, I've participated in those. They've been great. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, so let me put that poll away. We'll go back to our slides. Need to move fairly quickly. This is great, getting so much interaction here, and I want to keep on going with that. Okay, so we've talked about the interactive community. Okay, one of the things that, so in our eMentoring, we've got, here's the more detail on that, we're including video, email and chat, and phone under virtual meetings. The phone, it might be a 20th century contraption, but it still is very user-friendly and something people are more used to. And it can be a stepping stone to other things. The automated email, you can do the e-course, the tips, and also prompts. So sending out a short email to prompt people to go to the website, to let them know there's something going on social media, or to alert them to a resource, either send it to them or give them a link. The digital resources, including video, audio, and written, and the interactive communities might be a specialist platform, but it can be a dedicated website. More and more we're going to social media and the webinars like this one. I've included that because the way I feel about my webinars, for me, I love running these webinars with you because it makes me feel I'm connected with you. It makes me feel I'm not here by myself, banging on about mentoring. There are other people out there who love it as much as I do. And getting your feedback and your input, it's not only part of my learning, it's part of being part of a community. So I'm going to talk about some of these low-cost ways to engage briefly. So actually I think we've pretty much covered those, so I'll skip over. I've done the automated email. Here's just an example. Oh, here it is, an example. I got ahead of myself. 10 keys to excellent, a complimentary e-course. So that's an example of you can tell that this is a little bit old. That's me that's me nearly 10 years ago now. The photo. But the content is still good and still useful, and getting great feedback about that. So that's an example of an e-course. It's a short email in HTML that comes out to you. This is an even shorter one. This is a prompt. So this is a follow-up course. You can see it's a very short email, gives the link to the website where people can go and continue their learning, and it's a password protected because that's a paid option that I provided. And again, this is part of that first e-course, the second email, and lots of white area. So this is about keeping it short, keeping it HTML, gives you a nice layout, and using visuals, using pictures in your emails. So this is a longer one. Now, this is a mentoring tip. You can see it's about a page, and this gets mixed response, I have to confess. Some people love these mentoring tips. They really value them. I've got about 48 of them that go out. You can send them out weekly for 12 months. You could send them out fortnightly for 2 years or whatever. Or you could just get a batch of them and have them going out over a shorter period. Some people love to get them. They really value them. But other people complain, I haven't got time to read that. And so it's a mixed response to those. I did a much shorter version aimed at graduates, again, going out on a regular basis as a simple, short tip. So this is called Mentoring, Not a Random Chat, hoping to connect with young graduates, younger people, shorter attention span, but prompting them, hey, you've got a role to maintain this relationship with your mentor. So make sure that you're prepared for them. Don't just rock up. Don't just think it's just coffee with a buddy, and be prepared and so forth. So there's some examples there. Digital resources, there's a whole list of the types of platform that you can use. I've listed these in the matrix that you can either download or you have already. And they're just a few that I happen to be familiar with that I use to produce my digital resources. Let me see. Haiku Deck has a free version. I'm using the paid version. Animoto, likewise, there's a free version you can pay for, and so forth. So take a look at those. There might be some you're familiar with and some that you're not. If you're using those, you might want to make a comment on those. So the communities now, and I want to get on to using some social media because, as I said, my experience with dedicated websites is a bit iffy. They can be quite expensive to set up. You can do that, and I have done that for myself and also for several clients. And the platform I use for a dedicated website for a particular program is called Ning, which gives you good community interaction, good forums. You can blog, you can post, people can have their own profile, and it's private, password protected, and you can set up a resource center within that. But getting the interaction is the problem. My bet is my money's on social media. Just about to get involved in a program where our entire communication strategy is built around Facebook. So we're going to use Messenger within Facebook because we know our participants are on Facebook. We toyed with the idea of having a separate, so we're going to set up a closed group for our mentorees, and we're going to set up a separate closed group for our mentors, and we have another group for the program that's publicly, that can be seen by the public. And we're going to post on all three of those. We toyed with the idea of putting the mentor forum or platform, group on LinkedIn because it's the more professional platform, but we decided to keep it all in one place for ease of use and uniform communication. So we're going to encourage them to be there. Because in the pilot program, what was found is that our participants actually didn't read their emails, but we knew they were on Facebook, and that's why we went there. So I've included, as I mentioned, that's just another example of an online community. That's a screenshot of the mentoring portal demo. If you want access to the demo site, drop me a line. I'll give you the access to that. and you can see, you can wander around that and explore it, and see what that actually looks like. That's a paid platform. I think Ning still has a free one, so you can explore that and look at if that's something you want to do for yourself. Okay, so here are some examples of Facebook um, actions. So we've got the Sagan Net community is very much active on Facebook. So if you're not familiar with these, go search on Facebook, go have a look. I'm a great believer in learning from what other people do, what they do well, and maybe what you might do differently. Wow, time's getting away from us, so I must push on here. So webinars I've already talked about. That's a summary we've already talked about. So want to bring online our guest at this stage. So there are 4 programs I can tell you a little bit about, but better still, I can get Laura online from GA Tech and the Mentor Jackets program. So the 4 programs, I'm coming to you in just a moment, Laura, just giving you the heads up. I'm on the way to opening up your microphone, looking forward to hearing from you. But there are 4 programs that I do want to mention. The industry mentoring program at RMIT University in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. The Mentor Jackets program, which Laura will be speaking to about in just a moment, out of GA Tech in Atlanta, Georgia. The University of New England, and that's New England, New South Wales, Australia, ran a program called Balancing the Equation for first-year female students in STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and then the Sagan Net program, which is a worldwide science program, fabulous program. Make a note of these programs. We're not going to have a lot of time to talk about all of them, so I do encourage you to go find their websites and learn for yourself. They're all great programs. So let's go to Laura. Coming to you now, Laura. Going to open up your microphone. Hello, Laura. Can you hear us?
Hi.
Hey.
Yes, I can.
That's fabulous. So I just wondered if you'd just give us a little bit of background about this program, how many people it involves, and something about your experience. I'll jump in with a question from time to time. So over to you, Laura.
Yeah, so our program is based out of the Georgia Tech Alumni Association, and our primary goal is to help our current students at Georgia Tech connect with alumni mentors who either studied what they're studying now or work for a company that they might want to work for in the future or in an industry that they want to learn more about. And basically just plug our students in and teach them the value of the alumni network while they're here and give them an opportunity to take advantage of that great resource and learn from people who have done what they're doing now. So Mentor Jackets itself started in 2003, and it was originally a pretty small program, primarily with the Alumni Association's board members mentoring a few students that put in applications. And so it started out with about 30 mentoring pairs. We actually started our e-participation pretty early. Not all of our board members live in the Atlanta area, and our program grew at a pretty small rate for the first, I would say, 7 or so years. But then in 2010, the Alumni Association launched a larger student program called the Student Alumni Association, which also has a goal of helping the students connect with the alumni network. And from there, the program just kind of exploded. So this year, we're looking at having about 1,350 pairs. Last year, we had about 100 less than that, so about 1,250. And we have students everywhere from freshmen in college, so about 18-year-olds, all the way through PhD students, and they're in all the different colleges that Georgia Tech has to offer. So
And about
it's a
half,
pretty,
sorry to
oh,
interrupt,
sorry.
but about half of your mentoring pairs are meeting virtually. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say probably most of them take advantage of a lot of the virtual things that we've put in place, like our social media and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, about 50% of our mentors live outside the state of Georgia and outside the Atlanta area. And so we actually have mentors all across the United States and all around the world who are able to serve as mentors still through like the e-mentoring platforms.
Okay. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that one of the challenges is to support the e-mentors and help them feel included. So, can you talk about some of the things you've put in place to help mentors feel included?
Yeah, we do host a few in-person events within our program, and so the virtual participants especially have typically felt like kind of the redheaded stepchildren that they can't really take advantage of everything that our programs put in place to support the mentoring relationship. So we've been very conscientious in the last couple of years to try to webcast as much as we can. Whenever we have a speaker coming, we try to have a live webcast. If that's not possible, we try to record it. And in both cases, we'll record that presentation and put it online too as a past event resource that the mentors can view on their own, whatever schedule works for them. And then it still gives them the opportunity to talk to their mentee about those topics. And if the mentee is able to attend in person, then they've kind of both seen that conversation. Some other things we've done is we've had what we call virtual meetups. So we've kind of tried to use Skype as our primary tool to have small groups where the virtual mentors can interact with each other and ask each other questions. Those haven't, in my opinion, been very successful, but we do try to parallel anything that we have an in-person program for. We try to create a virtual program as well.
Mm. And you also mentioned in your notes you sent me earlier was this idea of the stigma of e-mentoring and the reluctance of people to let go of the idea of face-to-face mentoring. And you've got some interesting ways you've counteracted that with your Mentor of the Year. So, can you talk a little bit more about this idea that people are resistant to e-mentoring, and then tell us about your strategy for changing that?
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of a stigma no matter what, both on the mentor side, and we call them mentees, the student mentee side. A lot of times we'll be looking for mentors and people will say, well, I don't live in Atlanta, I don't live in Georgia. And once you get them past that idea that you don't have to be here and it doesn't have to be a face-to-face mentoring relationship, it's a really great way for people all over to stay connected with Georgia Tech and to hear about it from the student side. But the students sometimes think like, if I can't go get coffee with my mentor, or ever meet them face to face, I don't see how I can build a great relationship. And so we actually have an orientation that all of our students attend before they're paired with their first mentor, the first year that they join the program. And in that, we really try to emphasize some of the pros that can be associated with having an e-mentor. So if you want to work for a particular industry, let's say you want to work in Silicon Valley when you graduate, it's best for you to actually have a mentor who's in Silicon Valley who can tell you really what the work culture is like and what you need to wear to an interview there and that kind of stuff. And so it's a great opportunity for you to build your network to a wider range, to have a truly global network, and also to be able to interact with industries and companies that aren't in the Atlanta area. We also have a Mentor of the Year award that we give out each year, and we've divided that award into both an e-mentor of the year and local mentors of the year. And so with that, we're able to see what e-mentors who are really having what their students are deeming as a successful relationship are doing and what those people are doing. And then we can share those sort of as best practices with the wider group. We've also engaged some of the past e-mentors of the year to have them kind of share with us their perspective and some of the things that they think have worked best. And then we kind of write specific newsletters to our other e-mentoring participants and share those with them and develop those into resources that we can house on our website as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I've actually noticed on Facebook the pictures of the Mentor of the Year and their partners coming up, and I think that's just a wonderful way of reinforcing not only particular participants that were recognised in that way, but also keeping the message out there, and both about e-mentoring and about mentoring generally and the value of it. So, are there any other?
Yeah, and
Sorry.
I would just add to that, the other great thing about that specific award is, I mean, none of the mentors are really doing it to win the Mentor of the Year award, but when you ask the students to share their stories and you get to really hear about the impact that these individuals who are mentoring the students are having on the students, I think even for the mentors, sometimes they don't necessarily realize what a big impact they're making. So to have the students kind of write that and articulate it and share it with you on the days when you're stressed because your mentoring program is so much work and it's so difficult. If you just reflect on the stories that the students are sharing, they give you goosebumps and they make you realize that everything you're doing is really worth it. So,
Okay, thank you. And Lisa did ask, but you've just answered the question that she asked about how do you choose Mentor of the Year. So that's cool. All right, just to wrap that up, then would there be a sort of a number one tip you'd give to other people who might be looking at expanding their use of technology and e-mentoring?
number one tip. It's a really hard question.
Oh,
I think just trying to, like I said, like remove the stigma, let them know that um, there are definitely pros to being an e-mentor, and I think I didn't mention this before, but one example that one of our past e-mentors of the year shared was that if you're an e-mentor and you have just 5 minutes of time, you can actually do something to make an impact on your mentee. You can just shoot them an article that you come across online and send them an email and really take advantage of small bits of time. Whereas if you're an in-person mentor and most of your mentoring relationship is based on a face-to-face interaction, that takes a lot more time. You've got to schedule a location and a place and get dressed and drive there and be present and try to be really invested during that conversation. And so just try to take advantage of those little bits of time that you have as an e-mentor. And also another thing that we always tell them is to always try to schedule your next meeting at the end of your current meeting, especially if you have an e-mentor, because sometimes it might be hard to, if you're just trying to coordinate by email or whatever, it's a little bit hard to do that sometimes. So,
and one final question, Laura, coming from Aaron. How do you overcome resistance within your uni to having mentoring awards? Was there resistance, in fact, to having mentoring awards? And if so, what did you do to overcome that?
I don't think we've really had much resistance to it. The hardest part is obviously, saying like this person was the best out of 1,200 people. But when we come, we've continued to increase the number of awards that we give once we see stories, or we'll see a mentor who's been nominated 3 or 4 or 5 times and never been that number one person, and we've created new awards like the Outstanding Mentor Award, which is like more of a legacy award, and stuff like that. So we let the to further answer the question that was previously asked about how we select the mentor, there's an application and the students all submit it, and then we have a student committee that reads through it and kind of picks out, they vote for their top stories that they think are really impactful, and then we have a panel of a couple of alumni mentors, past winners and stuff, who will also look at it and kind of put their 2 cents in, and then we award them based on that. So I don't think we've ever had any real resistance. Definitely, we let everyone who is nominated know that they were nominated. We send them afterwards, here's what your mentee said about you. Thank you so much for being such a strong mentor in our program. And I think that that actually kind of encourages those mentors, even if they don't win, to see that they really are making an impact. And it really helps our relationships with those strong mentors, and they want to return and become mentors again year after year.
Okay, we'll have to leave it at that, Laura. Thank you so much for rearranging
Of
your schedule
course.
and being online with us today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we are, well, actually, we've gone overtime by 1 minute, and I want to stick around a little longer and see if there are any more questions and just give a little bit more information. So if you do need to leave, understand. If you can hang on a little bit more, I'm happy to continue. I just wanted to share with you some of the tips that came through from the RMIT mentoring program in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. And this is a program that's been going since 2012. Very successful program, very well evaluated too. So they really collect the results and the feedback. 1,800 mentoring pairs since that time. About almost 20% of their mentors are overseas based. So linking up students with mentors who are overseas. So obviously there's that virtual component there. The sorts of things that they do, they provide mentoring program guides, an online induction, access to online career resources, regular professional development, including webinars and face-to-face events, and a small mentoring team to respond to inquiries, generally within 24 hours. So their tips that they've offered are to build in regular activities to ensure face-to-face engagement with participants to maintain momentum, to ensure information is clear for participants, so both mentor-mentee expectations are managed, and an online mentoring system that's a fantastic resource, but they're reminding us that the system does not manage itself. It's critical to allocate time and staff resources to ensure it's well managed and the program is achieving the expectations of participants. I'm just seeing questions and comments coming in now. Here's a big thank you from Lisa to Laura. Lisa is saying that was great. Thank you. And Lisa's got to go. Thanks. Okay. So Laura's saying if anyone has questions about mentor jackets, they can also follow up with us via email at mentorjackets@gtsaa.com. I'll put that email into the updated worksheet when that goes out, okay? And Aaron is saying, great tips about the Mentor Awards. Thanks, Laura. So thanks again, Laura. So this is the STEM, Women in STEM program that UNE ran. And one of the things about that program that I wanted to mention, they were a bit concerned about me mentioning their program because it only went for one semester because of funding issues. And it was a great program. And I see this a lot. You know, people run a pilot program, it works really well, and then the funding's not around to continue the program. So this was, I'm hoping that one day they'll be able to resurrect that program and get it going again. Okay, so our 4 programs there that I've mentioned, the RMIT program, of course, Georgia Tech, Mentor Jackets, the UNE Balancing the Equation program, and the Sagan Net, which I didn't talk about a lot, but do go online and take a look at. This is an amazing program, and they're very active on social media. Okay, so real quick, if you're going to stay with me, I'm going to talk a little bit more about ways to educate participants at a distance, and this could be a webinar all by itself, and maybe that's what I should have done, but I will real quick run a poll here for those of you who are still on the line. How do you educate your participants? Here we go. You can choose one or more. Do you do it face-to-face? Do you use webinars? Do you use social media as part of your education strategy? Do you have those digital resources? Do you use printed books or guides? So I'll just leave that up for a few seconds. I see most people are still staying on the line, so that's really good. I apologise for going over time. I hope you're finding it valuable and useful, so I'm going to continue for a little while longer. Okay. Okay, so those are coming in. So just wanted to talk about, obviously you're experiencing a webinar, so you know it is a convenient way to convey a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time. You can record your webinars so that those who can't make the live event can still access the presentation. I think that's one of the great attractions of a webinar these days. It's not just a one-off event. You've got it to keep and reuse. They're not free. Webinars are not free, but they are very cost effective. And if you recognise the fact that it's an ongoing resource, a recording like a video really. And okay, just going to close close the, okay, close that poll. We didn't get a big vote on this one, but yeah, so I think it reflects the fact that most people are still using these face-to-face training. Some use webinars. There is an element of social media and those digital resources. Print is still very popular. Look at that. Print is very popular. It's a small sample. Okay, oops. So here's an example of a mentoring program using social media. This is the Back on Track, sponsored by iCare. iCare is a government agency, used to be called WorkCover in this state. So they are using social media to promote their program, to promote social awareness of this program. It's a very exciting, in fact, it's a world first program where Paralympians mentor seriously injured people to make positive changes in their lives. So this is a way of getting that message out there using the social media. One of the things I'm also very excited about is, if I can go back to the slide, is the idea of flipping the classroom. And this is a way of educating people before they ever get to the face-to-face workshop. And what I'm doing a lot now is actually providing the resources. A lot of resources you can provide on a USB. You can get these customized for your own program. You can do this yourself if you have the resources. Putting them, it's a credit card sized USB that you can actually send to people before they come to a workshop, and they have all of the information literally at their fingertips. They don't even need to be online. Couple that with a print book. Print books are still highly valued, I find. And I know RMIT put their mentor guide out. It is a digital product. People can print it out if they want to. So flipping the classroom simply means you're giving the information ahead of the classroom experience. So when people come, they're well informed, prepared, and you can do much more practical stuff with them. So if you're using this, you might want to type in, talked about that. So webinars we've already talked about as well. So I think that what I'll do, where's these coming up again? So I'm going to go to question time now, and I will conclude the webinar in about 1 minute, but I will stick around as long as questions come in. So if you're on the live webinar and you've got questions, please type those in now. And I just want to really quickly let you know that I will be involved in another webinar coming up on the 20th, Thursday the 20th of October, 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. A colleague of mine, Trish Carter, is running this webinar. I'll send you out all the details real soon, but I thought I'd mention it because it's a webinar about cultural intelligence and mentoring. So it's about mentoring in various contexts where there is cultural differences. So I thought you might find that interesting, and I'll send you out all the details very soon. So in the time that we have, well, we're actually out of time, but I'd love to hear from you, your key takeaways, your actions, and any questions that you might have. If you're listening to the recording, you can email me your questions, and I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you very much for joining the live webinar. Thank you for watching the recorded webinar.